So back here at Demo Day with Corey Gerard from Titleist and Vokey. Got the SM10s here, which have been much anticipated. And so we spoke to you second half of last year about wedges and did a whole skit about those. So obviously new models, mainly new finish. That's a real eye opener. I think the what is now not brushed steel.
Right. Yeah, let's start there. So SM10, there's a lot of really cool stuff coming, but firstly, you've got to like the finish you're playing with. So we have three finishes. We have the Tour Chrome, which is probably our most popular. The Jet Black is becoming more and more popular from each generation, but we really felt, Simon, we needed something to fit in between. Yeah. And that Goldilocks is this one here, which is our nickel finish. And it really sits beautifully in between both, as I said. One of the reasons is Tour Chrome for some players might be a little too glary, but Jet Black is a little too dark.
The sun comes out just
there. Look at that. There's the glare. So we really feel like that's going to be a popular one, but I love the fact that all three finishes are cut differently so that the grooves end at the same spot. So regardless of which finish you choose, you're going to have the same performance.
And that's something that Titleist and Vokey have done before with the the raw being cut differently because the chrome or the plating going in to fill the grooves up. So that's not a new thing for Vokey wedges. Yeah. And it's interesting actually, just hands on here, they feel different. The whole finish on the hand feels different to previous models as well. So it's not just a visual, there's definitely, it's a smoother feel.
Well, and the team's worked really hard on that nickel, the paint finish. We do with all our finishes, but also too, the profiles are different. So even before we get to performance, the profiles have changed, and Bob and team have spent a ton of time here, Simon, making sure that two things happen. Number one, that profile here in the toe, this part, has to look symmetrical and good to the eye in a bunch of different positions. So you think about your higher lofts around the green, you're not just looking at those in a square address position, but if you want to chip or pitch or bunker, you've got that club face open, that toe has to look good in all of those. Yeah. And that's why the leading edge is rounded off a little bit too. The other thing that Bob has done, which is very clever, in the lob wedges in SM10 and the sand wedges, each loft, each profile within a loft is exactly the same. So what I mean by that is, instead of, say, a putter where you would choose one based on the shape, hey, I love that shape, or maybe not quite there, the profiles on these are all the same, so you're picking one based on performance purely, which is really clever.
How different would that have been in previous models then? Because it's not something that I necessarily picked up on.
Quite a bit different. Yeah, quite a bit different. The team now measures the leading edge and the blade length differently than what we have in the past. Bob has come a long way in terms of even his knowledge over the years in terms of designing and measuring, and now with CAD, the team is really able, Simon, to lock in a profile and just change bounce and different things without having to change that club look. And that's really the secret of SM10 is, as you get to the center of gravity changes, all of that happens without the club changing in terms of looks.
I guess that's the thing, is you change anything anywhere, there's got to be a knock-on effect to not change the dead weight, to not change the center of gravity. So
there's a give and a take. So there's always three things that we look at when we're designing wedges. Bob's always asked, how do I make the next one better? The first thing is shot versatility. So we really dive into the feedback from Tour and people all around the world for that matter. What's the grind that's going to suit me? And the key here, as we've talked about, is if you find the right grind, it's going to give you right contact. And we're looking for contact nice and low on the club face between grooves 2 and 5. So what we've done with SM10 is we know that as iron lofts are getting a little stronger, that people are gravitating a little more towards a stronger sand, stronger lob wedge to marry up with their irons. So we really felt the need for a lower bounce option in the 54, and that's where the fan favorite, Simon, the 54M, is coming back into the lineup. So that gives that player a low bounce option there. We needed to complement that with something in the higher lofts. So L grind comes out, but the 58 and the 60 are available in T grind. So you've got this 4 degrees of bounce in that lob wedge. So again, we just want to make sure when we talk about versatility, each player has got an option for low, mid and high bounce with these different grinds, whether it's your sand or your lob wedge.
Because the T coming out, the L coming out, it still will be available WedgeWorks, I believe.
At some point.
Or is that to be decided?
Yeah, maybe not. I think for all those L grind players, I'm one of them.
Yeah.
Those players, I think the great thing about the L grind is you've got a T and an L that both say 4 degrees on the bottom, but they play really differently. So I guess that message of it's never really been about the bounce number, it's about the soul grind of the club. That's how you choose the right one. But for those favorites of the L grind, I'm sure at some point you might see something.
It can be recreated. The studio that has a grinding machine, you can take either an S or an M, because actually the M and L, the main body of the first half of the bounce is very similar,
correct,
but just wider sole on the end.
That's exactly right.
So you can always get close to creating it if need
be. So that's an important part there. And then, you know, the second key to great wedge play is center of gravity movement. And I know for a lot of golfers, Simon, that confuses us. You know, we're pretty close when it comes to driver. I know what it's going to give me, but what is it going to give me in wedges? So with SM10, Bob and the team have worked really hard on 2 key elements. Number 1, the lower lofts, pitching wedge, gap wedge. That center of gravity's always been a little heel side. And occasionally for players, that can mean the club face rotates a little quick, and they hate seeing that ball start left for the right hander or right for the left. You want control over that ball. We've shifted the CG more towards the center, so out towards the toe. That's helping that club face stop rotating. So it's keeping squarer for longer, but you want the opposite in your high lofts. You actually do want that club face to rotate. So 2 things have happened in the high lofts. We've taken that center of gravity up on the club face in those 54 through 62 degree options. Sending that CG up gives you a nice low ball flight, plenty of control, spin, and distance control as well. And then that CG is moved forward. So it's kind of the best of SM8 and 9 all in one. And by pushing that CG forward, this club face just wants to square up. That's on your higher lofts. So if you've got an open face, you're playing around the green, that club face is going to want to square and match up at impact for you.
So they visually look, certainly in the higher lofts, thinner. That center section, so almost really kind of narrows in and flares out towards the top of the head.
A lot of work on the toe, and then the beauty of this is all this CG that's being moved up higher, there's a thicker top edge here, but you can't see that from a dress, and that's really important to the golfer.
That's something Titleist have always done through the iron ranges as well. The top line's always been very, very clean through clever little angling, making it look a little neater than it actually is, so that you just don't see the back half of it. And
correct.
That's noticeably in these.
And speaking of irons, the team has worked really closely with the iron development team on making sure that there's this beautiful transition from your iron set into your wedges. So straighter leading edges, less offset in those pitching and gap wedges. So you're looking down more at something that suits your eye.
And something that happens and has happened for a while in the Vokeys, but I think it's worth seeing as we have you here explaining a bit away, is how the groove progression changes from the lower lofts into the higher lofts.
Right, and that's a big one because number 1, the groove has a role to play. You know, the whole reason the grooves are there are to channel debris like sand, grass, dirt, water into the groove so the ball can hit the machined edge of that spin mill groove. That's how you get spin. So grooves are paramount. So we cut them on different angles. And you think about it this way, as we have less loft on a 46, that contact is very square on, so the grooves are cut that way. As we go this way and we've got more loft, it's going to want to slide up the face. So we actually need to cut those grooves on a different angle to get the debris inside them. And again, getting the ball to touch the machined edge of that groove. We also know that grooves wear out over time. They do. Now, they won't stop working, but they'll spin a little less after 75 or 100 rounds. Okay, more importantly than that is they'll lose consistency. So how do we keep that consistency between most spin and the one that doesn't spin as much? So we heat treat the face. So think of grabbing a steak and throwing it on the grill. You're not cooking it, but we do that with our faces to double the durability of that life. But the groove cutting process with SM10 is second to none in terms of tolerances, cutting the grooves in and making sure that every single one is the same. And Bob, he makes us check every single wedge. Every wedge we make around the world this year, Bob makes us check every single one to make sure the grooves are not only conforming, but they also meet our minimum standards, so you get that consistency.
So great insights as ever from Corey regarding the wedges. And so launching We should have them kind of around end of Feb, early March. I'm now allowed to say that as of the other day. So looking forward to getting these in. I think, you know, as ever, the Vokeys are going to be, they're always going to be a successful wedge. They've always been so well produced, and the variety of the grinds, the variety of the finishes, and that reminds me of the old black nickel, the original black nickel.
Very similar look to it. And
many
I think
old days.
Some good memories.
Yeah, the first spin mill wedge I had, I went from a wedge with no grooves on the face, to which I used height to stop it, to one that stopped quick, and I was not good for the first couple of rounds because I couldn't make myself hit it because I couldn't believe how much quicker it stopped.
Yeah, that's what fresh grooves do. You know, go and get fit, and if you can find those fresh grooves, you're going to get that consistency. But I think players are really going to love SM10. You're going to find that it's got a lower flight, a much improved feel, which is really important to the golfer, and you're going to have maximum spin in all conditions and all shots.
Corey, thanks again.
Thank you.
Great fun as always.
Great to catch up.
And we'll see you same time next year.
Thanks, Simon.